I'm going to talk about reproductive isolation. It is a concept in evolutionary biology, in genetics. It means if two animals, two organisms are distinctive enough, very different species, then they won't be able to reproduce. There is an isolation. This is an obvious concept, right? What is so special about that? The reason I would ask this question is because on Reddit and on another Chinese Q&A website called drivel, there are very smart people. They asked a question. The question is, why there isn't any reproductive isolation among different races of human beings? And this question was posed because, bear in mind, reproductive isolation is a well-recognized concept. In the animal world, it is taken as an axiomatic truth. For example, if you try to breed, you try to get a monkey and a cow and get them to mate together. First of all, they won't even get along, even if both happen to be in a mating season, but they won't have intercourse. But even if they do, the female, no matter it is male monkey and female cow, or the reverse, a male cow and a female monkey, the female wouldn't get pregnant, because we all know that not only the genes are different, the species are different, the chromosome numbers are different. However, there is one small exception. I digress a little. There is a kind of animal called liger. So it's a portmanteau of lion plus tiger, liger. And from the name itself, you can already infer it is a product. It is an offspring when a male lion mates with a female tiger. Meanwhile, the reverse is male tiger mates with female lion. You will get, as you can guess, it is called tiger. So it is a mix of tiger and lion, liger and tiger. You can go and search on Google. There are these kind of animals. It looks a bit odd. It's a hybrid between tiger and lion. So that is a small exception. One reason is because tiger and lion are close enough, so it is possible. It is less distinctive between monkey and cow. However, there is a catch. The catch is all these ligers and tigers, they are all infertile. That means they will be the last generation of the animal. If you get a female liger and a male liger, you get them to mate. Even if they have intercourse, the female wouldn't be pregnant no matter what, so it's a dead end. And likewise, tiger, you get a male tiger to mate with a female tiger, it wouldn't get pregnant. So they are sterile, they are infertile, so that is a dead end. And besides tiger and liger, I think even an older well-known phenomenon is the mating between horse and donkey. When you mate male horse with a female donkey, you get a kind of animal called mule, M-U-L-E. And meanwhile, the reverse, if you get a male donkey to mate with a female horse, you get genie. It is very similar to tiger and liger. They are sterile, they couldn't breed further. So these are the small exceptions. And even that, the offsprings are sterile. They couldn't get pregnant. So this is what reproductive isolation is in general. You have clear demarcation between different species and different genus. There are different species and genus. They are impossible to mate, to breed. What is the reason? Nobody knows, because even in physics, a lot of things couldn't be explained, especially the why question is very hard. But however, in biology, it is even more so. Especially in evolutionary biology, something that has spent a few billion years. Nobody knows why. You could argue that it is a designer of this ecosystem, the designer of this evolution, the universe. They carefully, deliberately draw some lines between different species so that the breeding process wouldn't be too promiscuous. And then why does this matter? Just now I mentioned, right? I saw on Reddit and on Zhihu, people are asking why isn't there reproductive isolation between humans of different races? What does that mean? That means the humans of different races are still able to marry, have sex, and give birth to the so-called a hybrid, a mixed race child. For example, obviously, black could marry and consummate with a white, and they have a child. Most likely, the skin color will be brown, and likewise for Asian, Latino, and so on. So apparently there isn't reproductive isolation between different races. So people ask that. And the reason people would even post such a question on Reddit and Zhihu is because we all feel like there is something very distinctive. There is an inherently biological distinction between different races. The almost obvious one is skin color. Blacks have black skin color. Whites have white skin color. The Asians generally have brown, yellow skin color. Likewise for the Latino. So people take it for granted. This is like such a obvious archetypal feature, racial feature. It is so apparent to the extent that we take it for granted. It is something in biology, something in genetics. And not only that, not only the skin color, generally there is also an archetypal agreement on what features certain races have. For example, people take it for granted that the whites generally have blonde hair, and then the Asian, the Latino, the blacks normally have black hair, and Asians are known to have smaller eyes, smaller body size, and then the whites and the blacks are taller, and the whites and blacks have larger eyes. So all these features, just now I said, right, it's a very standard stereotype. Maybe some people really get offended when I just said that, but if you go on the street and interview a lot of people, they share this kind of stereotype. I'm not going to talk about social science or whether it is politically correct to do so, but what I want to say is a lot of people have this kind of stereotype, this kind of understanding, thinking that all these things, all this race distinction, the difference of our physical features are biological, are genetical. However, that's why because people think it's biological, that's why people even think that different races of human beings could be treated as different species. Just like in dogs, you have Chihuahua, Golden Retriever, you have Shiba Inu, or all these different breeds. So some people think that different races are basically different species, biologically different, genetically different species. However, the answers given on Reddit is very shocking. The answer is race is actually a social construct. It is not a biological construct. It is a social and anthropological construct. That is actually very astounding, because that statement implies that race is completely a mental thing. That means today, if we could wind a magic wand and change all the people's stereotypes, then this concept of race wouldn't exist at all. It is not objective. It is not as objective as physics, chemistry, things like that. At first glance, that feels very counterintuitive. It can't be true because just now I said that it is so obvious. Certain races have a key distinctive feature. We have a different color of hair, we have different skin color. And then I realized the reason why is this belief so deeply embedded is because, like all kinds of other stereotypes, it is very hard to change. It is not even questionable. Most people hold the stereotypes in limbic brains, I suspect. And 1,000 years ago, when we were hunter-gatherers, I think that is an advantage. If you store some very, very strong and firm stereotypes in your brain, then it could be very handful. It could be very handy when you want to use them for your survival. And that precisely explains why today we have all kinds of very strong stereotypes. And to counter this belief that race is a biological construct, you have to actually pay very careful attention. First of all, you have to ignore media depiction. All the movies, obviously, they will have white people with blonde color hair. They will have Asian with smaller eyes. However, if you really do a demographic investigation, statistical investigation, if you find hard enough, there are actually a lot of Asian with larger eyes. You could actually find Europeans with smaller eyes. You could even find African people with fair skin. I'm not talking about South African because South Africans the whites actually immigrated there. I'm talking about some countries, for example, Tunisia. You don't really see people with very dark skin. So that is an evidence that we basically confuse the tree for the forest. We saw a few black people on the media, on a few Asian people on movies. Then we start to generalize and think that must be inherently biological. Hence, race is a social construct, and that explains why among human beings there isn't reproductive isolation, because among 7 billion people on Earth, all of us are actually the same species. We are so close to each other. There's no biological and genetical difference. The difference between a black and I, as a Chinese, the difference between us is smaller than the difference between a Chihuahua and a Golden Retriever. And even that, actually Chihuahua and Golden Retriever are the same species. There is also no reproductive isolation between a Chihuahua and a Golden Retriever. But our difference is still smaller than the difference between a Chihuahua and Golden Retriever. And reproductive isolation only happens in a larger difference between species. Just now I gave an example, monkey and cow. All right. So there is one very interesting speculation saying that actually why 7 billion human beings on Earth? Why do we have such a small set of genetics? We are actually having very little diversity. The reason is last time there were different humans, but speculation says that there was an incident called Toba super volcano that killed too many different kind of genetically different humans. As a result, we only have one choice today. So bear in mind, race is a social construct. We are all very similar regardless of skin, eyes, and so on. And we have no reproductive isolation. And we should not magnify any tiny difference. We should focus on the difference between us, all the 7 billion people, with other species, be it monkey, be it tiger, be it cows, and so on. All right, so I'll stop here today and see you tomorrow. Goodbye.